The cosmic electromagnetic life energy of creation. This is an approach, as it says here, to affirmations, meditations, emotions for overall health. And we're going to be speaking about some things that maybe a lot of people don't know are in the creation teaching or the contact reports. The information from Contact 216 about acupuncture, when Quetzal gave quite a bit of an explanation. Now, I could have copied all those very long sentences, but because it's Contact Report 216, you can go in and correlate and see exactly what he was speaking about. So here, with the cosmic electromagnetic life energy of creation, it's called Qing by the Plejaren. And it flows through energy channels in the human body that they call sananta. Now, Qing is known to us as Qi, and traditional Chinese medicine calls the sananta meridians. Now, I should say that the word Qing also appears in Chinese, but it was specifically explained by Quetzal that there's no direct correlation between the terms that the Plejaren use and that are used in our terrestrial languages. So each sananta or meridian is connected to a specific organ in the human body. For those of you that are or aren't familiar, these dotted moving lines represent the energy moving through the meridians. The dots represent the acupuncture points, and it was explained by Quetzal that there's well over 700 acupuncture points when we believe on Earth that there's maybe closer to 500 or something. So there are acupuncturists who do work with some of the channels, but apparently there's still a lot of that that isn't known to us. In traditional Chinese medicine, the organs are paired and they are associated with a specific element. And as you can see from this, the earth is correlated with the spleen and the stomach. Water element is kidneys and bladder. Fire element, heart and small intestine. Metal element, lungs and large intestine. And wood is associated with the liver and the gallbladder. We won't get into great detail about how they come to associate those organs with that, but we will carry on a bit more and say that each organ is also associated with a specific positive and a specific negative emotion. They have both. And that blocked energy in the sananta system can lead to energy obstruction, so the immune system or the consciousness and or the psyche is disturbed, it's weakened and suffers damage, right? Causing physical or consciousness related or psychological troubles, sufferings, or illnesses to appear. We don't know this for the most part in Western medicine, although it's opening up a bit more to it. When cosmic electromagnetic life energy flow is unobstructed, then optimal health can be obtained and maintained. So the main organs and their associated emotions. The negative emotions here, spleen and stomach associated with worry, right? Kidneys and bladder, fear. Heart and small intestine, mania. Lungs and large intestine, grief. Okay? And then liver and gallbladder associated in the negative with anger. But each organ and organ pair have an association to positive emotions as well. So the spleen and stomach are also associated with empathy. Kidneys and bladder with gentleness, heart and small intestine with joy. Lungs and large intestine with righteousness. Liver and gallbladder with kindness. So, we have a key here. It's not the only one we're going to talk about today, but if we identify a negative emotion that we are feeling, if we can detach enough to observe and acknowledge, recognize, we might be able to say to ourselves, let's shift that. What would it be like to be feeling empathy? Empathy, so distant from worry. so much a connection to the other instead of that preoccupation with that anxious, worrisome self, right? Fear, we would go into gentleness. Fear is quite obviously the opposite of it. But I should also add that there are, in addition to these attributed emotions, there are other emotions that are linked, let's say, to earth and all, but they are kind of in that, vibe. Worry, anxiety, this type of a thing. So we're using some of the more easily identified ones and juxtaposing them for hopefully an effect. So grief, we would focus on righteousness rather than that draining sense of that loss. We stand in righteousness. Anger, we move to kindness. Now, this might be a little bit optimistic in many ways when we are in the midst of something. Do we find that impulse? Are we aware of a little inspiration directing us to, why don't you just mark up this instead of that? So we can. But we may have to start to study ourselves in that sense as well. So there are relationships between the emotions, the organs, and illnesses. What we're going to do is we're going to be testing the consciousness, emotions, and organs with affirmations and meditations. So if I may, from a 1984 composition, you got affirmations, you practice patience, you visualize, and you chant, but down beneath, like a little thief, the belief still says, I can't. So you blame reality because duality's always got something up its sleeves. Well, the joke's on you, your aura too. You better take your karma and leave New Age blues. Someone dropped your crystal. New Age blues. Better get a metaphysical New Age blues. New Age blues, I don't want to hear about your energy. Now, this whole thing was kind of, let's say, inspired. At this time, in the 1980s, New Age movement is very big, and everybody's running around health foods and auras, UFOs, and channeling, and all sorts of stuff. And affirmations and positive new thought was really beginning to take hold a lot. A lot of people I knew were espousing, affirmations were posted everywhere. And I remember one day I said to a friend of mine, did you not ever notice that if you go into the home of a wealthy person, they don't have an affirmation on their refrigerator that says, I'm a wealthy person. Why? Because they know it. Now, this is applicable to many different kinds of states where if you know something about yourself, you're not as likely to have to put it in front of you all the time. No. Our intention here is to bring into conscious awareness any energetic blocks that are obstructing our consciousness, emotions, and organs. Okay? And what we want to do, we want to work to remove, complete, forgive, transform, and release any limiting patterns, influences, behaviors, and beliefs, etc., so that cosmic electromagnetic life energy flows freely. We're going to proceed basically 4 steps. And with each of the things that we're going to bring up to work with, we're going to focus just on breathing naturally. We're not going to go for yogic breathing. We're not going to try to hold our breath or do any kind of magical demonstrations with breath. As a matter of fact, we're going to try to do something closer to what Billy speaks about in the introduction to meditation. I think it's page 350. He speaks about, in meditation, that the focus is on the nostrils, where the breath is entering, and as we draw the breath up into the passages, comes to the finer high point in the passages, and then as we're exhaling, and the breath is exiting. So basically, if we think about it, we're kind of bringing the attention to start with here, here, here. So while it's also a practical thing to do at times for belly breathing and different kinds of breathing for different effects, if we bring the attention here, as we would also see when we practice Billy's meditations, we're going to find that it is more conducive to a relaxation, to a introspection, and an ability to focus and at the same time not get tunnel vision of things with breath of fire and all that business. Okay, so we're going to ask our inner wisdom to reveal to ourselves only that which we are ready to receive, to perceive, and handle. Means we can relax with this. We're not going to be overwhelmed by big, horrible pictures. We're going to get what we're ready for, and we'll be able to handle it. And as we silently repeat the affirmation that we'll have in a moment or two, we're going to check for any negative feelings in the body, images, sounds, etc., arising from within, and let them appear. We are not going to fight against it. We're going to remain neutral, without resistance, denial, or forcefully trying to change what we feel. We're going to observe neutral positivity, see things as they really are. So to proceed in a neutral, positive manner, let's look at an interesting affirmation of what isn't. Most affirmations were affirming something that is. Now, this one does affirm something, but it does it by a very funny little approach. It says, in me there exists neither anxiety nor fear. We're saying we don't have this. We're affirming not having something. In mir existieren weder Angst noch Freude. What we're going to do here now, we're going to take this affirmation, and keeping it up there in case you want to refer to it. And of course, this isn't mandatory or womandatory, but if you want to, you can sit here and participate. And that participation is silent. We'll do this for maybe a minute, meaning focus on that, and just see if there's any resonance to this, positive, negative, or not. It's all yours. Now, granted, it's easier if you're in your own home or wherever you want to be, and you can do this for as long or as short as you wish to do it. So we're going to move on. That's how we do it. We repeat the affirmation. We notice if it feels the same, worse, or better. Then we can continue to repeat the process should we feel, wait, there's something more. I want to feel this a little more deeply. Well, I will bring the slide up each time. We won't take all the time to do that. Unless somebody raises their hand and says, wait, I'm not done. Okay. All right. So in me, there exists neither anxiety nor fear. Anxiety and worry are connected to the earth element organs, the spleen and the pancreas. And fear is connected to the water element organs, right? So do we see a connection, possible relationship, how anxiety and worry can disrupt this part of the stomach, leading into the digestion, and anxiety and worry can give rise to fear. So it's interesting to me to see that the Chinese, long ago, working off of the original Nocodemian information about what is now called traditional Chinese medicine, came to understand, to observe, because these were people that were very much in touch with nature, with life, with the earth, with the body, with the natural expression that has been lost to such a great degree. They made lots of very interesting correlations. They worked with very interesting insights, and they had their own kind of psychology. And I hadn't thought of putting it in here, but it just occurred to me. I learned some time ago that there was a story, this is like a little anecdotal story from the Chinese medicine acupuncture annals that you can run through online. And the story goes that in ancient China, there was a family that was ruled by a patriarch who was a very solid guy in the family. And suddenly, for whatever reason, he went into a mania. He started to laugh about everything. He started to just take things as not being so serious and important. And the family was starting to get very troubled by this. So they went to the doctor of Chinese medicine, the acupuncturist, the herbalist. And they explained the situation to him. And they said, you know, the head of the family, Mr. So-and-so, and the guy listening says, I'll take care of it. Tomorrow, be over there. So the next morning, they're at home, and the patriarch is walking around, everything's a big joke, and they hear this boom, boom, boom on the door. And they're expecting the acupuncturist, and it sounds a little heavy-handed. So they go, and the patriarch says, I'll get it, and in fact, he walks over and opens the door, and there is the commandant of the army standing facing him. And behind him are about 10 or 12 armed soldiers. And he's looking, and he's still in good cheer. What is it? He said, I have an order from the emperor to take you and execute you. Well, that fire that he had going up got a big dose of water doused on it. And anxiety and worry can give rise to fear. Well, it brought him from that polarity down to a neutral place. It dropped him first into fear, and then with whatever fire element was still within him, he could rise a bit into the neutral realm. And they cured him of his mania. This is a story. I don't know how true, but it's a great illustrator of the idea of using Chinese medicine. Psychologically, we got a problem here with Dad. Oh, okay, don't worry, we'll execute him. He'll love it. Neutral positive affirmations. Now, why didn't we start with this next affirmation that you're about to see? I ask. I always remain relaxed and thereby gain might over myself. Stets bleibe ich entspannt und gewinne dadurch Macht über mich selbst. Why didn't we start with this? Well, because I figured that if this presentation, this idea is going to be useful and serviceable to people, it's from this point on in our world. How many of us simply sit down and go right into being able to say, I always remain relaxed and thereby gain might over myself? Is it not more likely that whether we like it or not, there are tinges of anxiety, worry, sometimes fear, that are present just from interacting, just from being the receiver of the output of news, of other people's very palpable states, emotional states, worry, concern, all sorts of things, grief, we are in a different time. So while this is, to me, one of the great affirmations in Billy's zillions of great affirmations, in order to embody that, in order to tune to that, why not, as long as one feels that it's useful at all, you don't have to go to the previous, but why not go to the other affirmation first, the one about, in me there is neither anxiety nor fear. Clear that. But as people who are students of the teaching, right, for the most part, with various familiarity levels of practice or experience with it, we don't mind coming here, but we also don't mind having a way of checking something. So an affirmation, as I said before about the rich people don't have the affirmation, I'm rich, they're not going to have any incongruity with that. They don't even need it. We may have a little incongruity if we step into this until we have a practice of working with all these wonderful meditations and affirmations from Billy that are powerful. And if we can come in with as clean a slate as possible, then we are moving with this one and any of the others of your choosing. So let's take about 50, 60 seconds, if you will, and play with this one. Now, I love this one, and I love how this could come as a next step. Of course, you have a million combinations with the affirmations, but this one is, I am strong. I am indestructible. For in myself, I am full of love, peace, freedom, harmony, and compassion for all creatures. Ich bin stark, ich bin unzerstörbar, denn in mir bin ich voller Liebe, Frieden, Freiheit, Harmonie und Mitgefühlsamkeit. That's a beauty. That's a beauty. Now, the mental block meditation, when we think about the different states, let's say the negative states that we can be in, and those things that are offered, let's say in Chinese medicine, as those antidotes, there is something very all-encompassing about the mental block meditation. So if we have left anything out, if we've missed something to antidote the way we're feeling, it isn't quite covered by, the spleen or the kidneys or what have you. Here we have this, ich lebe in Liebe, ich lebe in Frieden, ich lebe in Freiheit, ich lebe in Harmonie, ich lebe unbeschwert, ich lebe in Gesundheit, ich lebe in Freude. I live in love. I live in peace. I live in freedom. I live in harmony. I live unburdened, unweighted. I live in health, good health. And I live in joy, which is the hard one that the Chinese have as well. Why not think also about, since we talk about the life, cosmic, electromagnetic life energy of what? Creation. It means we're not always, let's say, passively receiving and working with something given from the outside in completion. We're given an idea. We're given an impulse, a suggestion. So why don't we use an affirmation we didn't use before? How do we do that? We can create our own affirmations and test them and see if they work. For instance, here we have, in me there exists neither contempt nor envy. In me there exists neither shame nor apathy. In me there exists neither arrogance nor self-pity. I am completely filled with cosmic electromagnetic life energy. I regenerate now. It is so. I'll go on to another one in a minute, but I've been using these last ones, especially I am completely filled with cosmic electromagnetic life energy. I regenerate now. It is so. Why not? Because, you catch COVID, you get this, you get that. How are you ever going to get yourself back or forward into an energetic that you feel is much more true to you than this? So you create your own, borrow this one, it's fine. Figure out something. So meditation from clear sight. Can you see this from Billy? Besides the 77 aforementioned sentences, there are still countless others. For any of us that have a tendency to get locked into, well, it's only this. Only if Billy says that, or this is it. So we form our own word orders and sentences according to our own judgment and use them. This is important, as is what Billy says here about the striving. Without striving, there is no life. Without life, there is no striving, right? And Billy has really hammered that away. Go for it. If anybody, is kind of cracks that whip with a smile on his face, that would be Billy. So what we're going to do here is revisit the blocked energy in the Sananta system, energy obstruction, what happens, psyche is disturbed, weakens, suffers damage, etc. When cosmic electromagnetic life energy flow is unobstructed, then optimal health can be attained and maintained. How to be unobstructed? I mean, I don't know if we got to that one. How to be unobstructed. This is the word that I like to use often. Because ultimately, you can speak about relaxing. You can speak about releasing. And that's all very valid. Where do you want to go to with that? You want to soften. Well, what do you want to soften? What don't you want to soften? Really, in a sense. Well, what about I am strong, I am indestructible? Yeah, but I always remain relaxed. Are those things contradictory? No. In the practices from like the Chinese arts, the Qi, Gong, and Tai Chi, they talk about you should be expanded. It's another word that they use, expanded. Now, it doesn't mean that you force yourself open. You have to in order to expand, you have to release, relax, and soften so that things can expand. There's the Chinese I Ching or I Ching book, the Book of Changes, and in there they've got, I think it's for duration or something, it talks about in order for things to be contracted, to take form, to receive, you have to let them expand first. You don't try to take something and right away compress it. Let it breathe, let it open, let it soften and present itself. So to me, this is an under-recognized idea for, we could say, visualizing or having a sensory association, entering into a state where you are safe to release, to relax, to let these parts of ourself, inward, physically, outward, make themselves known because we have never felt them kind of nice and a little bit heavy, flowing. This isn't relaxed, it isn't expanded, it's military, but we want to go into a softer space where we still have all our faculties are sharpened. You know that. When we can be softer, we can see, we can perceive, we can pick up. And we can respond, we can move, we can get out of the way, we can take flight, soften.